Oh, hey,
Hi, everybody.
I'm getting
We're
my mic.
back on Authors on the Air, and I'm James Latwell, your host. We're here to talk with Will Viharo, and Will is the author of this. I mean, this is an incredible memoir. It's called Graffiti in the Rubber Room: Writing for My Sanity, and it's really just this no holds barred memoir of a most unusual author. And he's really created his own subgenre of a mix of noir, horror, erotica, some some other influences in there. And I want to welcome you, Will. It's been great to kind of read this and catch up with you.
Well, thanks for having me, James. I'm honored and flattered that you have me
Now, you're
here.
probably most well
Especially
known for, I mean, you're most well known for your fiction. I mean, I think you've got 20 book titles under your belt and an equal number of short stories. Especially, love stories are too violent for me, which is, I think, one of the things that stands out. But this is so the Graffiti in the Rubber Room is such a different approach. I mean, how did you come to decide that now's the time to do basically a story of what made you an author and who you are today?
well, as I wrote about in the memoir, I actually wrote a memoir with that title, and that is a replica of the bound typewritten manuscript. That's what that cover is in
Yeah.
1994. So I'm not good at math. That's a long time ago, 30 years ago. So I and I wrote it then because at the behest of editor Judith Regan of Simon and Schuster, I was recommended to her by Wally Lamb. Uh, I interviewed him about the novel She's Come Undone, and we talked. I set up some stuff, and next thing I know, Judith Regan left me a message on my. We had something called an answering machine back in those days, and
Yeah.
I was just got home from my job delivering blood around East Bay, and I was stunned. So I sent her everything I had, and she really liked my letters. She liked the voice of my letters more than the books. She did have a soft spot for Chumpy Walnut, which was my first novel. And apparently, she would, when she was having a bad day, she'd tell her sister, "Wow, I really feel like Chumpy Walnut today." So anyway, and Chumpy Walnut I wrote when I was started writing when I was 16 and completed when I was 18, the final draft. And I gave it to this guy Paul Zindel, who wrote The Effect of Gamma Rays and Marilyn Marigolds. He wrote a Pulitzer Prize,
Right.
the young adult novels like Figment. So I was in the writers' unit of the Actors Studio in Los Angeles. My father is an actor, Robert Viharo, and I'm very intuitive flow when I talk. Sorry. So, but my point is that he gave his Chumpy Walnut to his agent Marilyn Marlowe of Curtis Limited. Isn't it a great name, Marilyn Marlowe?
Hmm.
And
Yep.
I was with her for like 10 years, and then I got to Judith Regan, and I thought my ship had come in, and anyway. So to make a long story short, I guess it's too late for that. She asked me to write a memoir, and I was 30. It was 1993 at this point, and I was stunned. And because she liked my letters, I decided to put it in an epistolary format and write letters and tell my story to people in my lives, to my lives. Yeah, I had more than one. To my fictional characters, to people I admired that I didn't know, and and I people I showed it to, like my author friends, thought it was great, and a lot of people loved it. I never found out what she thought because she at that point, this is '94, she
Yeah.
founded her own imprint. I think at HarperCollins. I can't remember. Judith Regan Books eventually became Regan Books, but anyway, she became a celebrity editor. You know, she she um, she published like Howard Stern's memoir and a bunch of things. Anyway,
Right.
she just left Simon and Schuster and went to I think it was HarperCollins, and just unceremoniously. I mean, I had no idea what was going on. I was reading about this in the news, and I was talking to Marilyn Marlowe at Curtis Brown, and she's the one who told me, yes, she left. I said, where does that leave us? She says, I don't know. I'll try to find out. Next thing I know, I go. One of her assistants, Debbie Bull, leaves a message on my phone saying the memoir was very egotistical or self-indulgent or something. I'm like, I don't know how to write a memoir that's not self-indulgent.
Exactly.
So anyway,
You see so many authors. Yeah, you see so many memoirs out there that, I mean, it's their life, and they've decided to expose that to the world. But what's special about it or what's different about it. But your memoir, chronological, you've laid out this story of your life that has so many different influences, and I mean, it's every chapter, every page. It was like, man, there's something new that's coming, and all these different influences over your life. It was, I mean, there was a lot packed into this memoir, and I think you did a great job kind of capturing it all
Thank you.
and laying it out.
Well,
What you mentioned, yeah, you mentioned one of the things that you did was kind of an epistolary style with with the memoir, and I really thought that was unique because it's not, letters that you've collected over the years, but you're actually writing to your characters
mhm.
or significant people in your life, and it kind of laid that story open in a raw, very raw and different way, I thought.
Well, that was my idea in '94 was to who the hell wants to read, Diary of a Dog Walker or, Musings of a Blood Bank Driver.
Right.
No one wants to read about someone who is hasn't made it or is successful because there's no punchline. It's a joke with no punchline. So I thought I'd try to frame it and construct it like experimental fiction, so that even if you know nothing about me, with which odds are you don't, you could appreciate it as literature. Um, and I did that the first time, and I did it this time even more so. So this time I had some of the same recipients, like my mother, who was the most tragic person I've ever met. That's the first letter.
Right.
She's schizophrenic and failed actress and ex-beauty queen. Just she haunts me, and I didn't know I really didn't really know her that well, and that tragedy infuses a lot of my work. So
Yeah.
here, my father, who I a lot of these characters, like my father, he is a character. Uh, he was an actor. He was in this movie Bare Knuckles, and he played this character, Zachary Kane, modern day bounty hunter. So I addressed the letter to Zachary Kane about my father. The one about Mickey Rourke, which was the most cherished period of my life, being young in my teens in the early '80s in LA on my own and free, um,
Right.
hanging out with movie stars, just because I happened to meet Mickey just before he got famous. But I addressed that to Motorcycle Boy in Rumblefish because Mickey actually took me to audition for Rumblefish. Obviously, I
Wow.
didn't get it, but I never wanted to be an actor. That's all in the book, and I have a lot of stories about Mickey Rourke in there. The real Mickey Rourke, as I know him, he was a very sweet guy and really like a
Mm.
brother. He bought me my first car, as I
Right.
and then Christian Slater, who optioned Love Stories Too Violent for me,
Right.
which is why that's my best known book. He's on the cover of the Gutter Books reissue. I
I
addressed that
love it.
to Clarence Worley of True Romance, and the connection there is I wrote Love Stories Too Violent for me on a typewriter. You can Google it; it's this machine, and from the old days, and in 1993, and that same year I saw True Romance. And when I met him in Miami in 2012, when we were scouting locations for our screenplay, he told me that I told him that when I saw True Romance, I thought that movie was made just for me. And he told me when he read Love Stories Too Violent for me, he thought that book was made just for him.
Mm.
So and even the titles are kind of similar. So I write to Clarence Worley about Christian Slater and our adventures in Miami, it ultimately didn't work out. And then so on. Then I had letters to Chumpy Walnut, Dick Valentine, Elvis, Sinatra, Marilyn Monroe.
Right.
I have a fake interview with Mark Maron, like a fake transcript of an interview where I talk about cover a lot of bases and issues, like on mutual veganism, and just all that. And then the last one is to Judith Regan, telling her, you know what, I published this memoir you asked me to write 30 years ago. Uh, so and I then and that the last chapter, I kind of sum up my whole journey and the hits and the misses. I talk a lot about Thrillville when I was Wilbur Thrill, B movie impresario and host of Thrillville
Right.
Theater, Parkway Theater, and my wife Monica, who's now a professor and a college dean at Seattle Central College here, was
Right.
the Tiki Goddess, and that's how I had the most notoriety in my life. I got more attention for that in the Bay Area. I was infamous or well known as Wilbur Thrill, and she was Monica Tiki Goddess. So that's a long chapter. My protest of the Ocean's 11 remake, which got me worldwide press, because who cares about that I wrote a book? I mean, this guy's which I since recanted. I actually saw the remake, and it's okay. I like Brad Pitt and George Clooney. but they're no Sinatra anymore. So I mean all that stuff, and then Monica and I were on HBO's Real Sex, in the foot fetish segment, and I don't know. I had a lot of material to work with, so I didn't know how to. People like Sean Cosby was a big supporter, and he really egged me on. I mean, he's been a fan of my work. We've been mutually fans for years because we're in some of the same anthologies and friends on Facebook. He really digs my fiction a lot, but he kept hearing my stories and said, you got to write this stuff down. And I've been hearing that from a lot of people, but hearing it from Sean is one of the things that instigated me to just get this done because I was turning 60. I'm 61 now. So I give Sean a lot of credit for his inspiration, and he's been just a champion for me.
Sean's a good guy, and he I don't think he gets enough credit for the things he does off the page. I mean, he's in this community and he encourages so many people. Yeah, I really appreciate that about him.
And also my friend John Lindstrom, who I think you know now because he wrote a book.
Yeah,
I do. John, when I was a busboy at Neiman Marcus restaurant in 1979, he was a waiter, and we've been friends since then. So he's another great guy, and he's not only a great actor. He turns out he's a great writer too. So he was very encouraging. So he's in the book, of course. So that's why I finally wrote it.
Yeah. So in the book, I mean, your life is kind of like this billiard table, and the balls are kind of careening off one another, and you're changing course as you go. But there's
I'm not Newman, so
yeah, so many influences that kind of pull back in key moments in your life, and I want to just pull out 3, and I want to just lay them out there for you, and
fire at will.
Pick which one you think had the biggest influence on you. So there's the relationship with Christian Slater. There's becoming Will the Thrill, or meeting Monica.
Meeting Monica.
Which had, yeah.
No, if I didn't meet Monica, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. I mean, I couldn't have written my books. Monica puts the thrill in Thrillville. Monica is my dream come true. She is the. I mean, I've wanted 2 things in my entire life. I wanted to be a successful writer. I'm artistically successful, which is another way of saying I'm commercially a failure. And then and to not be alone, because you read about my background. I was raised in a right-wing cult. On my own when I was 16. I had a lot of trauma from my childhood. It's detailed in the book that took me years to get over with, and so I was alone a lot in my 20s. I was alone in little rooms and hovels with my cat, hotel rooms like Bukowski, right on my little typewriter, typing away. Thought I'm going to write myself out of this. But the other thing was I really wanted someone to be with. I wanted a family, and I'm not close to my family. And I mean, I have some good folks in Houston who took care of me when I was very young, but I'm not really close to any of my family. Even my father he's funny. But anyway, so I wanted a home. And so when I met Monica at an Elvis party, I met her first when I was hosting Jailhouse Rock at the park. I just started, and my first wife, hey there, my first wife was, we only married a few months. I married her in the comedy section of the video store where I was working, and then she was bipolar and in AA, and it didn't work out. She was my first assistant at a movie theater that served beer. It didn't work out. But then, so I thought I'd be alone forever, and I said, fine, I'm just gonna play the field. And then Monica comes to see Jailhouse Rock because she's a big Elvis fan, and shows me her Elvis tattoo on her head, which is like a novel. And then I ran into her again at an Elvis birthday party I was hosting in January of '98. And here we are. So, and we had an epic wedding at Lake Tahoe. We have a lot of similar interests.
Yeah.
So I got married by a Dean Martin impersonator, and I stayed in Frank Sinatra's cabin on my last day as a bachelor, and we had mariachis and open a martini bar in the Frank Sinatra celebrity showroom. So my wedding is like my masterpiece. And then everything since then. So there'll be no thrill in Will the Thrill without Monica, to be honest. And
Got it.
now I'm this high school dropout moved from New Jersey. I'm married to a college dean. Too bad.
You won.
So definitely, I didn't even think about that. I mean, the thing about Christian Slater is I'm haunted by the failure of that deal, which came so close, and he was so passionate about it. And he really was, and he brought me in. A lot of times the book is optioned, and we'll see at the premiere if it gets made. That's it. That's the last you hear.
Right.
he brought me in to work on screenplay with him. He was a fan. He would read passages to me
Yeah.
from the book. He said he'd be on a movie set thinking about what the Valentine would wear. I'm not kidding. He had little dolls made of him as Vic Valentine. Whatever. So we got so close. So that has haunted me for like 10 years, and I'm just now kind of getting over it. So the influence of that, it's great that it happened. It's amazing. I got a fantastic story out of it, but I've had to really fight the futility that has plagued me ever since. And then what was the other one?
Yeah, the other one was just becoming Will the Thrill, and you
Oh,
kind of
well,
blended that in when you're talking about
I am
Mike.
Will Ferrell. I just had to get in touch with my inner lounge lizard. Like when I was 1988, I was like this little guy living in a little room, writing books, getting rejected by sorority girls and English majors because had no future. I didn't have any change. So a friend of mine took me to see the Rat Pack at the Oakland Coliseum, and that I received the Rat Pack. I say I want to live like these guys. I can't afford to have their lavish lifestyle, but I want to enjoy life, man. I want to swing. So I bought a sharkskin coat at a thrift store, jacket, and I was working shit jobs. I didn't have a budget. And I started reading up on the whole lounge lizard tiki life thing. So that was the origin of Will the Thrill, was me trying to find an identity. And I still do that to help me go forward, to face the world. I have to be Will the Thrill when I'm out in the world. And it took me a long time. And then when Thrillville happened years later, when the two people who published Love Stories Too Violent for Me in 95, Wild Club Press, Kyle Fisher and Catherine Campbell, they founded the Parkway Theater in 97 and asked me to be a programmer because I knew I was the movie guy. He was the business guy and she was the chef. And so and then I became, they asked me to host a live show, and that's how Will the Thrill was born. So all that stuff I had been cultivating and researching was made manifest in a high profile way. So that I can't say that's not impactful because that gave me my brand. That gave me my platform.
Yeah.
And that Thrillville Theater was rolled over into Thrillville Press, which is how most of my books are published.
Right. Now, in the interview that didn't happen with Mark Maron in your book,
you notice I called it the interview that never was, like the date, which is in the book.
The date, exactly. But I mean, part of it, and I think you say it in there, is part of the book and that interview was to kind of self-validate where you were in your writing career. I mean, you've got an impressive list of titles behind you, both long, short fiction, novel. Yeah, exactly. What was it that you felt you needed that self-validation in the manuscript, in the memoir?
I didn't get it from Mark Maron, but it wasn't really Mark Maron. Well, first of all, I'm a fan of his TV show, and I just relate to his persona, and I love his newsletters. I never actually listened to his podcast because I write. But I wrote a fake interview with him on Facebook years ago of how it would go because I think we hit it off, the banter. And then I just extrapolated on that. So I wanted to cover my journey as a writer and the validation of my journey as a writer. My body of work is out there. I'm very proud of it. Maybe it'll get discovered one day, maybe it won't, but I did my part. But I also wanted to communicate a lot of things that make me me. A lot of my ideals, my priorities, my worldview, in kind of a comedic setting. So I'm not sounding preachy or anything. So it's as much about personal validation as professional validation. It's like this is who I am, and take it or leave it.
Yeah.
I talk about why I'm a vegan and stuff like that. I talk about what's going on in the world right now and stuff like that. So, but I didn't want to do it in a didactic or preachy or boring way. So I'm really, that's my favorite chapter of the book because I had a lot of fun writing it. I really wanted to nail Mark's cadence and tone and wit and then match him. So that was my favorite one to write.
That was fun. Yeah. Now, you've kind of embraced, and you touched on it a little bit ago, that 50s Rat Pack, lounge lizard kind of lifestyle. What was it that really drew you there to that environment and that time and place?
I'm not a MAGA guy, so I don't idealize that era. But aesthetically, even when I was really young, the clothes and fashions and music appealed to me. I have a lot of friends who are liberal who are into that stuff. It's got nothing to do with the politics, despite the politics.
No.
Although not the politics now are even better, really. But it's just really just an aesthetic, and my wife shares that aesthetic sense. that's one reason we bonded. But I just that's what I gravitated toward. I mean, jazz is kind of
Yeah.
the music of my soul. I got heavy into lounge music and tiki music, and that's now fused in all my books. And then that's it. One thing I do have, I'm lucky, is that I have Thrillville, I have Will the Thrill, I have a brand name, and I have a body of work under this
Yeah.
umbrella that's unique. It may not be well known, but I have that. So it's that's another thing that distinguishes me is I have Will the Thrill with Thrillville. So when when I read other
It-
authors' posts on Facebook, I don't feel like one of those guys. I feel like I'm in my own little bubble. Like I created my own genre, existential pulp fiction, and
Mhm.
I write really for me. I write as a reaction to my life. Every book I write has to do with where I am at that point in my life. I can't write unless I have that personal impetus and that drive, that connection to my reality. And then we can talk about the one that's coming out hopefully in December, the romance,
Yeah.
if you want.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, people talk about their first concerts and all that kind of stuff. Here's a confession. My first concert was Sammy Davis, and I met
So
Joey
cool.
Bishop. I met Joey Bishop in the elevator going back up. I mean, I was 10 years old, and he was telling off-color jokes in the
Oh,
elevator.
look how you turned out.
Yeah, in spite of that.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, you let's talk about the next work you have coming out because it's coming back to Chumpy Walnut again. So give folks a little peek of what's behind the curtain
So
there.
a lot of my books are from old manuscripts that I was typing on in a little room in Berkeley and Oakland and in San Francisco in the 80s and 90s. But so like Lavender Blonde, Down a Dark Alley, Mermaid Drowns in the Midnight Lounge, which is the favorite of my books. I started right before I started doing it. These are all I just took old manuscripts and rebooted and reinvented them and 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 in alignment with who I am now because I've changed a lot
Right.
since I wrote the original. Chumpy Walnut, like I said, I wrote when I was a kid. I imagined Chumpy Walnut first as a talking walnut. In fact, I've been carrying around this walnut. It's got a little face on it for decades. I just put a face on it. Chumpy was a talking walnut in a cartoon that I drew. But I didn't think I was a good enough artist. Although the first book does have my illustrations, which are kind of like Thurber-esque. Here's a little Chumpy doll I found on the street somewhere. But the book is really innocent and innocuous. It's kind of a Damon Runyon fable. I was very big fan of Damon Runyon and J.D. Salinger when I was a kid. Later on, Raymond Chandler and Charles Bukowski and Jim Thompson. But those were all the early influences. So I decided to make him a little guy because I was short and I got picked on at school in New Jersey. But it's New Jersey, so you fight back. He was kind of my avatar, and I was raised in this cult, so that's kind of in there. And he's the only one of his kind until he meets, and he's exploited on the nightclub circuit by gangsters. There's like a couple of hobos based in Abbott Costello. There's a lot of burlesque women and femme fatales, like all stuff I saw in the movies and TV. But it's very innocuous. It's innocent. I mean, I was 18 when I finally put it out. 19, whatever. No, I didn't put it out when I finished it. And Mickey really liked it. I gave it to Francis Coppola, and he looked at it for a movie. I didn't have him. But Fred Roos looked at it. Anyway, I didn't know what to do after the memoir. I put everything I had in that memoir. I thought this is my definitive statement. This is my manifesto. What's the other magnum opus? I'm exhausted. I put everything I had. I mean, that's a lot of work. I mean, you read it. It was a lot. It was just everything. It was like a last stitch. Just like I'm just gonna put it all in there because I really wanted it to be everything I wanted it to be, and it is, and I'm proud of it. But I got to write. I can't just walk dogs and watch movies the rest of my life. I mean, I like both, but there's more to life. So I said I can't go back to Chumpy because I'm not that guy. I'm not this little innocent guy anymore. But what I did with Chumpy is what I actually did with Vic Valentine. I put Chumpy in the world of my later books, like A Mermaid Drowns in the Midnight Lounge, which are like these explicit, graphic, grindhouse, pulp horror noir, fever dreams. But his character's attacked. He's still Chumpy, and the first book is still canon, and it picks up from there. But the world around him is completely chaotic, and a lot of that is reflective of the world outside my window. Although I can see the space,
Right.
it's a nice view, past the space, or maybe that way. It took me a while to really get that integration right. So I wasn't compromising either. So the book is basically I think it's probably my funniest book. At least it cracks me up when I write it. So it's supposed to be entertaining, but there's a lot of I say it's kind of like a combination of Ralph Bakshi and Russ Meyer and Kurt Vonnegut and David Lynch and John Waters and Rocky and Bullwinkle. Like it's just got all this stuff. It's like a literary live cartoon, but with very serious stuff in it. A lot of exploitative elements, but in a cartoonish way. It's there's sex in there, but it's like Ralph Bakshi kind of sex. I mean, it's not. You know what I'm saying? It's not really. I don't know. I don't know what the hell it is. I mean, I'm just like, it's just me, and I'm having a lot of fun writing it. I don't know who's going to read it. No one, hardly anyone read the first one. So I'm 61 writing sequel to a book I started writing when I was 16. That hardly anyone has read. So I'm obviously I have issues, but I don't. I always felt bad. Like I read a letter to Chumpy, and I felt bad that I never got him his due. Like I really thought Chumpy Walnut was going to be my catch in the rye. It was not going to be my Confederacy of Dunces, but I thought I could just get that out there and come to the belief that I'm done.
Yeah.
Work out that
so,
way. But anyway,
yeah. So we're gonna let's end up with something we call 3 quick hits, and let's put you in Chumpy's mindset. And I'm gonna ask you 3 quick questions, and just give me the first thing that comes to your mind. In terms of Chumpy's, what's his favorite drink? What's his favorite cocktail?
He likes Mai Tais, but he's got low tolerance. So basically, he's got Mai Tai's half his size. So he has a drink.
Yeah. How about his favorite music?
Jazz.
Jazz. All right.
And
finally, what's Chumpy the most afraid of?
Losing Cupid Honeysuckle. That's the at the end of Chumpy Walnut, he meets a girl who's a half inch shorter than him. That's how it ends. Cupid Honeysuckle.
Yeah. Love it.
She's also on station at nightclub. But in the sequel, Romance of Chumpy Walnut, things happen and now she's normal size. So he's now small, but they're still together. And then she gets kidnapped, and then it's just I mean, there's so much insanity and chaos in this book, but it's all through this kind of like empathetic and fantastical filter. So I don't know what else to compare it to. I mean, most of my books I don't know what to compare them to, but in this case,
right.
I don't even know how to compare it to my own books. It's one of a kind, like Chumpy.
I love it, folks. We've been talking with Will Viharo. He's the author of Graffiti in the Rubber Room, writing For My Sanity, and I love the kind of the brown paper wrapper cover of it.
Like I said, that's of the bound manuscript.
The bound manuscript. I love it. So, Will, thanks for coming with us. And folks, look for the memoir and also Chumpy, the Romance of Chumpy Walnut, coming to you very soon.
Hopefully by Christmas.
So, Will, thanks for spending some time with us.
Thank you, James. Cheers.